I was arrested at 18 years old, finally, and it saved my life. Regardless of what everyone else was telling me about being new in the program and having to ask somebody and all this stuff, it wasn't the way it was going to go down for me this time. This time I was going to ask myself the questions and I was going to be honest with myself about the answers. I found freedom through structure and accountability and authenticity. And I know that when I started being honest with myself about what I really wanted, regardless of what other people thought, that's when I finally experienced true freedom. It wasn't when I got out of prison. It wasn't, when I got a home. It wasn't when I, made my first $100,000 in a year. That wasn't it.
Hello, and welcome to our channel, where we celebrate success stories of different professionals across the world. In today's episode, we have Jenn and a remarkable story of how she went from being a drug addict, living on the streets, being in prison, to building up her own six-figure coaching business. So stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back. We have Jenn joining us from Riverside, California. Jenn, how are you today?
I'm great, Tarek. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a real pleasure for me to have you on this episode. And I guess we'll get started with a little bit of your background, if you will, please.
Well, I hope you have a few hours for that. No, I am 37 years old. I am an only child. I was born and raised in Riverside, California, and I do have a very colorful past. I grew up with horses on a dirt road and old school values, and I didn't really appreciate what I had when I had it. To put it simply, and it made for quite an adventure. And so now for the last 10 years, I've dedicated my life to being able to help others find their focus and shift their life so they don't have to experience the kind of struggles that I did.
Okay, perfect. So I think it would help the viewers to learn a little bit more about your past, some of the struggles that you went through initially. What are some of the lessons that you may have learned from those early years, which basically helped shape the person you are today?
I would say first and foremost, without a doubt, I suffered from what I call chronic disconnection. And it's something that I have now done quite a bit of study and have quite a bit of experience in. But chronic disconnection, in my opinion, is when we don't have the ability to connect to who we are, how we feel, or what to do with that if we are even able to connect. And for me, I will speak for myself. Being an only child, I was constantly seeking acceptance of others. I wanted that connection that I saw brothers and sisters having. And I wanted that person that I could lean on and count on. And I didn't want to feel as alone as I felt. My parents had a wonderful relationship, albeit not very healthy, but they had a healthy relationship with each other in a sense that they loved each other and it was them against the world. And I was part of the world. And I was going to grow up one day and I was going to meet someone and I was going to get married and have a family and do my thing. And it was going to be me and that person against the world. And yet I wasn't there yet. And I was just a kid and it was so lonely. I also think back. So really right there, I suffered from disconnection and from codependency. Not only that, there was this low-key, unspoken expectation from my dad, who I love dearly, who was just this go-getter hustler guy who always was on top of everything. He was just the king of any room he walked into. And I felt he had that expectation of me, and everything that I did, I felt I needed it to be perfect. I needed to get straight A's. I needed to be the best in my class. I needed to be the best rider in the gym canna. I needed to, when I was riding the horses, all of these things. And I constantly spent every minute of every day comparing myself to others and rating myself, gauging on where I was on a scale of 1 to 10 next to this other person who wasn't me. And so I spent my youth really disconnected from life, from experience, from people, because I wasn't myself. I was who they needed me to be. And that set me on a journey that was pretty rough. At 16 years old, let's say this, I'll go back. I started smoking cigarettes in 6th grade. My parents took me from a private elementary school into a public school. I was getting straight A's in private school. I was getting the attention I needed. I was too smart for my own good, and I was testing at a post-high school level in 5th grade. And so when I got put into a public school and everything's review, I'm bored out of my mind. I started hanging out in the bathroom. And other kids in the bathroom weren't there because they were bored. Well, they were bored, but not because they knew what was being taught, because they didn't want to know what was being taught. And those who are the people I started hanging out with. And those are the kids that I started looking for approval from. And those are the kids that introduced me to epic disconnection and numbing and running from and escaping. And I developed the art of the escape. And I started committing suicide on what I call it suicide on the installment plan, because I was too scared to kill myself, but I was too scared to live too. And at home at this time, I was angry and resentful to my parents for even having me. I blamed them. I didn't want to be here. I was frustrated. I didn't understand the point of the world with what I saw to be what the world was. And I was just confused and lost and angry and had no clue what to do myself. And so when I think back, and as grateful as I am for my experience now, and as grateful as I am for my parents, they did the best they could. I wish they would have seen this shift and been able to do something about it, but they didn't. And so what happened was I started using drugs to disconnect from reality, and I went down that path. And so by 16 years old, I was a high school dropout. I had a needle in my arm and I was strung out on methamphetamine. I was homeless. My parents had to kick me out because I was violent and abusive, and I was stealing, and it was horrible. And the best thing they ever did was set that boundary, because it gave me the opportunity to suffer consequences for my own actions. And so I lived on the streets on and off from 16 to 18 and suffered the consequences of that as a young 16-year-old white girl in the middle of downtown Riverside and on the east side, which was not the place for a naive little girl like me to be. And still, I'm so grateful for those experiences. Now, during that time, of course, I lost my mind, quite literally. I went mentally insane. I was in and out of, picked up by cops and taken to mental hospitals half a dozen times. One of my stays ended up in the hospital itself. I was in the hospital for 10 days while they were trying to bring me back to this life, this reality. And then I spent 2 weeks after that in a mental hospital. When my mom came to pick me up, she begged them to keep me. I was 17 years old. She begged them. She said, "She is not her. This is not her. Please keep her." They still dismissed me. And I jumped out of the car on the way home. I never made it home. I was arrested at 18 years old, finally, and it saved my life. From 18 to 22, I was sober. I was in AA and NA, and I was following their rules, and I was doing their steps, and I was listening to my sponsor, but I still was not being taught how to cope with my day-to-day life, with my feelings, with my emotions, how to deal, right? I was being told that I was powerless over and over and over. I was being told that I had to listen to somebody else because my gut didn't know, that I didn't know what was best for me. And so I had to listen to other people. All these doctors are telling me I have to take all these pills, and they were numbing me and making me crazy, and I couldn't sleep, and I didn't know what was going on half the time because I was so out of it. And that didn't work for me. But what it did work for me in my mind was the drugs. And so after an eventful few weeks, a month or so, I was engaged to be married. I had my fiance relapse and get someone else pregnant 6 months after I personally had a miscarriage during my sobriety. And while I was able to survive the miscarriage, I was not able to survive the betrayal. And I relapsed. And from 22 to 25, I ran the streets as hard as I possibly could. I was arrested and eventually went to prison for drug and theft charges. And I served 8 months in prison. I was released worse than I went in. I was out 67 days and I was rearrested and sent back to prison, where I served another 17 and a half months. During that time, I had to make a decision. I was still doing drugs in prison. I had a girlfriend. Her sister would visit me and she would bring me meth, heroin, weed, and tobacco. And I would smuggle it into the prison, sell it, have my fun. But on 7/15/10, I got a dirty test while I was in prison. I was only sentenced to 16 months. I ended up doing 17 and a half months because I got more time for that dirty charge. 7/16/10 is the day that I decided that I wanted to do something different. I decided that I wanted to have a different experience. I didn't want to come back. And that's what was going to happen. If I didn't decide to make a change, I was going to end up spending the rest of my life here because it's a lifestyle. And so I had to take a step back and I had to take a look at what was I saying yes and no to? Before I could even do that, I had to start getting connected. I was so disconnected. I realized I don't know what I want. Everyone wanted, I'm doing this program while I was in prison doing drugs. I was also in a substance abuse program. And they noticed that I was not okay. And that's why I ended up getting the dirty test. So when I went back in a few days later, they could tell that I had gotten sober. And we started having some real conversations. And they started asking me what I wanted. And the truth was, I had no idea. I had no clue. I wasn't connected enough to me or my experience or who I was or to know what I wanted. But I know what I didn't. I knew what I didn't want. And so I started there. And so while, I am a coach now. And as a coach, I want a general idea of what you want. But the truth is, most of my clients, we got to dig around what we don't want first. Because once we get clear on what we don't want, which is what I did, I was able to start deciding, okay, well, if I don't want this, what do I want? And so my life became a series of, do I want this or not? Will this serve me or not? And I decided what my yeses, I made my yeses and nos count, if that makes sense.
Right. Wow. That's it's a very tumultuous journey. And I'm glad that, you are openly sharing about it. Really, I mean, a lot of people will not be able to imagine that, right? Because they have never gone through those kind of trials and those kind of situations, or nothing even close to it. So that's incredible. So I guess this is where, as you said, things turned around, right? You made a conscious decision to make those changes. So what are some of the first steps that you took in terms of maybe investing in yourself? What are some of those things that you did?
It's a really good question, because I think when we think of the term investment, we think of money. And for me, that wasn't the case. The first investment that I made was being willing to struggle on purpose, being willing to create on purpose resistance, being able to challenge myself. And I think that investment first, right? Being able to invest my energy into healing. And there was this old treadmill in the rec room. And if you're going to ask about my first investment, this was my first investment in myself. I was willing to fight for myself because there in the rec room, you've got 60 women that are programming from 9 to 5 all day, whether they be in the house programming, doing programming with the drug treatment, or whether they be out working or searching for jobs or going to school. We all come back around at the same time, and we all end up in the rec room. And that's where people are making their phone calls and playing games and card games and watching their shows. And there's this old treadmill in the rec room. And if you've ever heard an old treadmill, it's very loud, very squeaky. And so I'd get on this treadmill because there was nowhere else for me to go. And I had to move. I just knew instinctively that I had to move my body. So I started getting on this treadmill, and it's over and over and over as I'm working this stuff out of my body instinctively. And there were a few that did not find that. They weren't happy with that at all. And so I had to stand up for myself for the first time for what I needed. Again, second time, actually, because the first time was the medication. The first time was asking for help, asking for rehab. The second time was asking to have support around my medicine and my chemical balance in that area. My third was investing in moving my body, doing what I needed to save myself. And I felt instinctively that was what I needed to do. And so I trusted my gut, regardless of what everyone else was telling me about being new in the program and having to ask somebody and all this stuff. it wasn't the way it was going to go down for me this time. This time I was going to ask myself the questions, and I was going to be honest with myself about the answers. And I had to be authentic to myself first. And the truth was, I was going to beat somebody's ass, excuse my language. I was going to beat somebody's butt if I did not release this somehow. And I had to stand up for myself multiple times that week until we finally came to an understanding that I was going to do this because I needed to. And eventually they respected that. And that taught me a lot, especially new in my lifestyle recovery, what it looks like to fight for what you need and create space in your life for what you want. And from there, I was released. I will save you from the 6 months. I was released. I got home and I was running every day. And then that wasn't serving me as much. And so I started lifting weights. And then I wanted, I started learning about how food can how to regulate our blood sugar, and regulating our blood sugar can regulate the chemicals in our brain, and regulating our gut can regulate our brain. And I started learning about the vagus nerve and the mind and gut connection. And over the last 10 years, I've literally, as I mentioned before, dedicated my life to learning what is happening. How do we go from where we are to where we want to be? What's the stuck point? What's the gap? What are we missing? Because I know I didn't want to be in and out of prison anymore. I knew I didn't want to have to escape with drugs or any other fun activities that we use to escape from in our lives. I didn't want to blame everybody else anymore. I wanted to take responsibility. I wanted to get connected to my current experience. I wanted to have a clear vision of what it was that I wanted so that I could get there. I needed a balance in my life that worked for me chemically and physically and environmentally, physiologically. I needed to set boundaries and hold those boundaries and be authentic to myself around what it is that I'm saying yes and no to, and whether or not it serves me. And most of all, I learned that I needed accountability. I found freedom through structure and accountability and authenticity. And I know that when I started being honest with myself about what I really wanted, regardless of what other people thought, that's when I finally experienced true freedom. It wasn't when I got out of prison. It wasn't, when I got a home. It wasn't when I, made my first $100,000 in a year. That wasn't it. Mm-hmm. It was when I learned how to not give 2 cents about whether or not, especially if you're not family or friend or, in my life in any way, you hold no weight. And I started allowing myself to decide who and what holds weight in my life. And so today, I've had quite a journey. I was because of that, fitness and nutrition. And I went into, of course, being a personal trainer because I thought, this is how I'm going to save the world. I'm going to teach everybody how to be healthy. But the truth was, if you don't deal with the stuff that's going on inside your head, it doesn't matter what you do physically. And so there's a whole transformational process I had to go through just in that one part of my life alone. I started working out every day. Guess what happened? I got addicted to working out. I was working out like 3 hours a day. I was weighing every single leaf of lettuce that I ate. I was getting on the scale every single morning. I was taking pictures all the time. I was pinching the little tiny bit of skin that I had. Oh my God, why is there all the skin there? It's skin. It wasn't even fat. It was skin. I was walking around at 8% body fat. I had been competing. I competed, I think it was something ridiculous, like 7 times or 8 times in like a 15-month period. I ended up doing like 16 shows over the course of 3 years, which is quite a bit and very hard on your body. And all of a sudden, I realized I hated everything that was happening. I didn't get into fitness to look any kind of way. I got into fitness to save my mental health. I got into fitness to save my life. And I'd gotten away from that. I'd lost the vision. I had disconnected again. And that's when I realized what was really important. And it was that connection being that first step. It was the ability to connect to my current experience. It was the ability to create space in my life for what I really wanted, because that wasn't it. And so I got to take another step back. And so I went back to school. And I did 6 months for health coaching, and I did another 6 months for life coaching. And then I did another year for the transformational coaching method. I took a mastery course in that for a year. I did a 9-month certification that should have been a 3-year certification for functional nutrition. And with every single one of these certifications, as I kept adapting my practice, not just from physical fitness or nutrition, but who we're being in the moment, what we're saying yes and no to, and how to connect to our current experience. It was then that I was finally able to take my life and my clients' lives to that next level, to get them to shift the way they even not only view themselves, but the world, so that they're able to let go of the old stories and beliefs that have been holding them back for so long. Because I know for a fact that it was all the stories that I kept telling myself about what was true that led me down the path that I was down. And so I had to reframe those stories, redecide what I wanted. And it was to be able to shift someone's entire experience of life just the way that I had.
Awesome. Awesome. That's actually very inspiring to learn about the journey, right? Of how you actually changed around your mindset. You understood exactly what you were looking for, and then basically invested in yourself, as you rightfully said, in many different ways to get to where you are. So I think it's a good segue to jump into the coaching side of things. Talk about the coaching that you offer, some of the clients that you may have served, and ultimately a little bit about the business side of things.
Awesome. Okay. I'm just now starting to get to the point where I'm starting to share some of my client testimonials because they're so dear to my heart. And I feel like I protect them because I don't want to expose them. But the truth is that they share about it and they're telling their story. And so I have a few that I can share. One, she was a dear friend of mine. She actually started coming to me because I also do hair. I've done hair for years and years. And she started coming to me for hair, and then she started coming to me for personal training. And then as I started my coaching journey, she was one of my very first clients. And so she actually started with me for free. And this, I'll throw a little bit of the business into it as I go because I can kind of weave it in, and I think it'll help to kind of show the structure and how I got this started. As a personal trainer, I went in, I did sessions, I charged a certain amount per session, and that's the way I did it. And with coaching, you're creating an experience, right? It's a whole front to end situation. And being able to step back and ask the right question, I believe, is what makes a good coach. To be able to listen and instinctively ask the right questions to help the clients get their own right answers without telling them what to do. Something that I noticed in the very beginning of my practice was how different the strategy was, coach to client versus consultant to client. So there's a big difference between consulting and coaching, and I think that I should touch on that here. Consulting is you're the expert. As a personal trainer or nutritionist, I'm the expert. You're coming to me, you're saying, this is what I want. I say, okay, great. Give me your weight, your age, your height, what you do for a living, what your activities are. And I'm going to create this nutrition plan for you. You're going to follow this and not ask any questions. Same thing for personal training. You're going to come, you're going to do this exercise they tell you to do, and you're going to do it this many times, and you're going to smile while you're crying. And that's just the way it is. With coaching, it's a little bit different. While I do come in with some expertise, it's mainly around where I'm leading the question or where I'm pulling information from you. And as a coach, I am not the expert. My job is to make you the expert of your own life because you're the expert. I'm not. I don't know what you really need. How am I supposed to know what you really need? We all need different things, and we're all in different places of our life. So at those different stages, we're going to need different things. Even as the same person, I needed something completely different 20 years ago for myself than I do today. And I'm able to provide for myself in all kinds of ways differently today. And I have way more resources and tools to pull from. So I'm going to eventually, in 10 years, I'm going to have to do the same thing and adjust and shift. And I have a coach, and will always have a coach for that reason. I was working with my friend, and we got her, she wanted to do a competition. We got her on stage, but the whole time she fought me, the whole time she was argumentative. But this is when I was doing personal training. And the whole time she cheated and didn't want, and when we got to the day and came off the stage, she felt amazing about herself and turned to me and said, God, that was cool. Imagine if I had actually done what you told me. And my mind was blown. I didn't know how to feel. What do you mean? Imagine, right? Imagine. And there was something to that. I didn't know what it was, but there's something that anchored into me because of that experience. And that was when I brought her when I came to her with the idea of coaching her. I said, hey, I'm going to do a couple people for free. I put together this program. I really want to try it. And so I reached out to a couple people, her being one of them, and I did 90 days with her for free. And so that was one of my strategies of building my practice. Was I absolutely did it for free, because in turn, one, I'm getting the practice. Two, I get to get a testimonial if and when something happens as an amazing result of this working together. There was a bunch of benefit for me doing this, especially since I had no experience in this area. So we worked together for the 90 days. When she started out, she was renting a home. She had her three children, and her ex was living in her garage, her ex-husband, who she had a volatile relationship with, but she needed the money. And so she was also borrowing his car. And so it was literally a convenience thing. And she was keeping him around because she was wanting to borrow the car and wanting the rent. Couldn't stand him, made her miserable. With every day was complaint. Every day her energy was just in the dirt. She never had the ability to focus on what she really wanted to focus on because she was so wrapped up in her resentment around the situation she had created. She herself will admit she was a mooch. She would take advantage of any situation that she could because she could. And in the process, make herself miserable. That is not something that's easy to shift. And it didn't happen overnight, but we ended up at the end of 6 months. She had moved from that house up to San Francisco to sell multi-million-dollar homes because that was her dream. And she was already with a practice. She continued on with me for we still work together. And it took about 1.5 years for her to crack her first $50,000 a month. And this is a woman who literally mooched off of people and would step over dimes to pick up a penny. And to see her now as the leaseholder of $1 million home in Marin County, part of an incredible realty team and doing what she loves, helping people find their forever home and helping people to create this home out of a house and all these things that she does. And she has her marketing down, and she has her strategies down and all that stuff, which is great. But most importantly, she knows who she is. She's confident. She knows what she wants. She goes after what she wants. She's created a life that she gets excited to wake up to every single morning and share with. She'll text me just to share a picture of something that brings her joy, because that's where her mindset is at now.
So Jenn, I wanted to know a bit about your strategies towards marketing. How do you market your services?
When I first started, I was hearing all about the sales and marketing, and it just felt so crunchy. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I'm good person to person, but I'm not good at I don't want to be a salesman. Whether I feel like it or not, I don't want to be a salesman. And so I wasn't. And I don't think of it as marketing. I think of it as building relationships. I know that when I build authentic quality relationships, I'm going to find the people that I can serve and that have communities that I can serve, and vice versa. I know that when I meet the right people, like I loved connecting with you and being able to discuss what we're discussing today, and be able to share what I have with your community. But in turn, I'm looking forward to being able to have them share in my community as well. And so being able to make those authentic connections and build those relationships gives me the opportunity to have guest experts from all sorts of fields come in and network in my communities as well. And I think that so often somebody wants to compete and they're comparing themselves, as I talked about before. And all that leads to is compare and despair and feeling like you're missing out on something or feeling like you're not good enough. And so for me, by building the relationships, I knew that if it didn't work, it didn't have anything to do with whether I was successful or not. It just wasn't a fit. And I stopped taking it personally. And I think that that's one of the big things was I probably should, and in a sense do consider it a form of marketing, but I like to consider it relationship building.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So, I guess one of the things which most people will be interested to know is about the financials. So in your practice, how well are you doing?
I feel like I'm doing pretty well. I'm comfortable with what I'm charging right now, as I feel like everyone should be. If you're not comfortable with what you're charging, change it. When I first started, as I spoke with my client, I started her for free. That doesn't mean I kept going with her for free, because as she up leveled, so did I. And as I up leveled, so did she. And as I built my skill and my knowledge in my industry and in my niche, I developed an expertise. And so as I developed more and more of an expertise in my field and got better and better at what I did, I started charging more. The first, and she's been with me for a long time now, I first did 3 for free. I did 3 clients for free. Actually, I ended up doing 4. The next time I ran that same program, I charged $300. The next time I ran it, I charged $750. The next time I ran it, I charged $900. The next time I ran it, I charged $1,500. Now I don't even offer a 90-day. I only offer a 6-month one-on-one option or a 1-year one-on-one option. I have a 6-month option for $5,500, and I have a VIP option for $8,000. I have a year option for, I believe it's a $10,000, and then I also have a VIP option for $15,000. The level of support they get depends. What they choose will determine the level of support that they get. Something that I just recently did as I went through some stuff with my family is I completely cleared my entire program schedule. So now all I offer is my 1 entry program where people can come in, get to know me. It's a low ticket offer, and it's $97 for 10 days. And now but for a long time, I ran a 90-day program that I charged $2,700 for.
Okay.
But when I ended that is because everyone kept doing another 90 days. And so it didn't make sense to have a break in the session and a break in the goal setting. It made more sense to have a continuous thing. So my business has adjusted and adapted to what the needs of my clients are and what I wanted my business experience to be like.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And in terms of annual revenue, what kind of annual revenue are you looking at right now?
Right now, so for 2021, just out of the pandemic, actually 2020 was my best year ever. And then 2021 beat that. And now 2022 is on deck to beat that. So if I keep going the way that I'm going, I'll end up around 160,000 this year just for coaching. And that's not including my hair income, which is another around 60,000 for working 2 days a week.
Wow. Very impressive. Very impressive indeed. I think one of the final things that I would like to know is how do you actually differentiate yourself from other people in the same space?
One of the things I did was step away from the term health coach because of the fact that all these, bless their hearts, whatever, I'm down for everybody having their own experience, but these network marketing companies come out with a product and then you learn about the product and some system they've come up with, and now you're a health coach. And I don't agree with that. And it's hurting the industry. And so I had to disassociate myself almost from the term health coach because it gave me such EBGBs, if you will. And what I did was I titled myself what I do. My business name in itself is Lifestyle Recovery Solution. So I am a lifestyle recovery coach. I feel like in my industry, you hear the term recovery and you automatically think drugs and alcohol. And that's not the case. The truth is that I didn't necessarily suffer from drugs and alcohol. I suffered from chronic disconnection. My clients suffer from codependency. My clients suffer from perfectionism. My clients suffer from procrastination. My clients suffer from people pleasing and from compare and despair. And those are lifestyle issues. And while there are tons of lifestyle coaches out there, right? Lifestyle transformation coaches, that's what they do. Mine is focused specifically on lifestyle recovery, being able to have whole health recovery in all aspects of your life so that you can, if you want to up level in one area, we got to make sure all the other areas can handle that and that you have a balance in your life. And so mine, I would definitely say, is the fact that it's not just about recovery. It's about whole health recovery, mind, body, and spirit.
Excellent. Excellent. If people wanted to find you, where would they look?
I am on most social media platforms as Jennifer Henry or Miss Jenn Henry. So I know my LinkedIn is Miss Jenn Henry, MISSJENNHENRY. What else is? My Twitter is also the same. My email is also the same at Gmail. My Instagram is Fit Mind, Body, and Spirit, the letter N, not and. Mm-hmm. And I have my professional business Instagram, which is Lifestyle Recovery Solutions. I feel like the most easy, direct way to get a hold of me is through my email, and most of the things, and honestly, the platform I post most on, and I don't know if this is going to age me or what, but is honestly Facebook. And you can find me on Facebook as Jennifer Henry as well.
Yes. And all that will be included in the description box below. So, if anyone wants to check her out, all that information is there already. One final thing before I let you go, and a lot of people are curious about this, is that, the coaching profession can vary so much. So I guess I wanted to know from you is that who should actually consider becoming a coach?
Who should consider becoming a coach? If you are someone that thrives on transformation, on taking something from a bad place to a good place, right? I really don't know how to explain that in any simpler term. But if you're someone who likes to help people, if you're someone that has an experience in your own life that you feel you can use as an ignition or to ignite something in someone else, I feel that it's your responsibility to share that. And if you are good at listening and being able to ask questions and being able to help guide people in a more positive, healthier, more clear direction instinctively, then naturally I believe that you should be able to get a little bit more training, and definitely go and get training. Far too often, clients are getting re-traumatized by bad coaches. And so I do believe that if you have it in you and that's something that you want to do, take a free online course at least. Do something fun. Understand what it is that you're getting into before you start digging into people's minds and hearts. Because as a coach, you have a responsibility to keep them safe. And if you don't know how to do that, then coaching is not for you. If you are an expert at something and you want to just teach someone how to do something and you think you can change the world by teaching them this skill, then consider becoming a consultant. But if you want to be a support and hold space for someone as they grow into who they're meant to be, then definitely join us in the coaching world, because we need you. We need as many of you as we can get.
Perfect. Very well said. Definitely. And again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate that. You have added so much value on so many different fronts. And I think that it's an amazing story that you shared with us today. I really appreciate that. As I mentioned before, all her contact details will be in the description box below. And thank you so much. And I wish you all the best for your future journey.
Thanks so much for having me on, Tarek. I had a great time.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate that. If you like what you saw, then hit the like button. We're going to be posting at least once every week going forward. So if you want to see similar kind of videos, then subscribe to the channel. And finally, if there's a type of professional you want featured in a future episode, then let us know in the comment box below. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.